Our next speaker is Reverend Marquita Oliver. Marquita Oliver, or Reverend Mo, grew up in the Deep South, the daughter of a Baptist preacher. Growing up, hearing about an angry, vengeful God did not match the loving God she felt in her heart, so she began a lifetime quest for her own personal truth. She studied comparative religion, lived in a monastic commune, and in 1995 became ordained as an interfaith minister through the Universal Brotherhood, which is founded on the ideas that transcend geographical, cultural, and religious borders. It emphasizes the inherent unity and interconnectedness of all human beings. Marquita practices her ministry with the disenfranchised, the people who have issues with organized religion, gang members, at youth risk, victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, as well as people in addiction recovery. It is Marquita's mission to go into the margins with the people who are considered disposable, without judgment or admonishment, only with love and compassion, and walk her talk. I've been getting to know Marquita over the last 6 weeks, and it's been very interesting to learn about some of her experiences, and I can't wait to hear more about how her ministry came about. Welcome, Marquita.
Thank you. I am so honored to be here. I come to you from a place of complete humility, nervousness, not knowing. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm going to be perfectly imperfect. So thank you. Imagine a world where we listen to each other's stories and learn we're not as different as we are the same. So take a minute, put your feet up, and I'm going to tell you a story. I was blessed to start this life as the daughter of a Baptist preacher. And what that gave me was a life of service. My father showed me what service looked like. And pardon me if I'm a little hoarse. And the thing that was hard for me, as others have spoken about, was this concept of this harsh, well, first of all, this loving God, this God that loved me unconditionally, this God that wanted the best for me, this God that gave me free will, and it felt so good. But in contrast to that was this God that was good, that was wrathful and mean, and was going to punish me and send me to this horrid place called hell if I used that free will incorrectly. So I had this conundrum going on as a child. When I was 5 years old, I had this experience. I was walking past a mirror in my hallway. This is so vivid in my mind. And I caught a glimpse of myself. And I stopped to look at that. And as I'm looking at this strange little girl, I started to get this information. And it was, my whole life was laid out for me. Why I was here, that what I was looking at was what people know as Marquita, but Marquita was actually inside. This spirit was inside. I was here for a reason, and it was a big one. And this conversation was going on inside in my heart, but I could hear it. It's hard to explain. And my response was, I'm just a little kid. How can I possibly do this? How can I change the world? How can I? And what I heard was, I'll be with you. We'll figure it out. So I went to my mother and I told her what had happened. And I didn't know it was God. I didn't understand. And she said, there's too much mental illness in our family. You don't tell people you're hearing voices. So I put it aside, still not understanding it, went on about my life, still being of service. And as a teenager, my service went into politics, activism. I found my voice. When I was younger, I was so afraid that if I spoke, people would understand that I was odd. And as long as I was quiet, no one would know. This is another one of my fears of coming here today. It's like, oh, these people are going to know who I am. Um, so I found my voice in politics, in activism. And as I moved on through life, religion, I decided, I'm an atheist. Religion's religion. No, I'm just going to reject it all. And I went through that for a while, still doing my activism, still doing service work. And eventually I was like, well, maybe, I'm in my late 20s. Maybe there is something. Maybe I'm not an atheist. Maybe I'm an agnostic. Life goes on a little bit. I grow, I learn. And it was in the study of quantum physics that I began to find God, find my way back to God. And I remembered this experience when I was a little child. And suddenly it all made sense. It's like we hear about in Matthew in the Bible, he talks about having the faith of a child. And what is the faith of a child? It's complete trust or confidence in something or someone, not knowing, complete faith. So I realized that this was God who spoke to me and that I was here to be of service and to change the world. But how was I supposed to do that? So I had this idea. I had this what I thought knowledge, this belief that if I followed my path, if I kept my eyes open, if I kept my heart open, if I stayed awake and listened, that I could follow the path of service and that everything I needed would be provided for me as long as I followed my path and stayed awake. So I set out to do that. And I followed things like yellow dogs and pieces of paper and things that probably did look a little crazy to the outside world. But it was true. I never went without. I didn't own a home or anything else. And sometimes I might eat beans and rice for a week, but I never went hungry. I never went without a place to sleep. And one time I ended an adventure with 37 cents, but I was always taken care of. While I was doing this, my very dear friend and mentor, Liz, had become ordained through the Universal Brotherhood. And she asked me to come along. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I'm not joining any kind of religious organization. No, I'm not that kind of person. I am strictly a lone wolf. But then I met Reverend Donna, who became my mentor through the Universal Brotherhood. She had been a minister since the 60s, both with the Brotherhood and with Unity, which is more mainstream. And through following with her, studying with her, listening with her, I decided to accept the calling and to be ordained. In John 15:16, it says, "You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you." So I did it. I had a piece of paper. This piece of paper said that I could do stuff that I hadn't done before. I could marry people, which sounded like so much fun. So, of course, the first thing that came to me was a funeral. I was like, no, that's not fun. Funerals are not fun. Death is not fun. Reverend Donna said, just do it. You do what comes to you, and it's all going to be perfect. And it was. And I had this amazing feeling afterwards. And so began my ministry. In Matthew 5:16, Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." And he explains that his disciples are to bring light to the world. So I followed my light, and about maybe 8 years ago, by this time, my friend Liz has become an Anglican priest in Belize and has formed a chaplain service. And while I was there, she asked me to go to the organization meeting, not thinking that I was going to join them, not a joiner, but just to see what was going on. While I was there, I started to feel this calling that I was to join. And I've always kind of been drawn to outlaws, people in prison, the people who, not that I'm a criminal, but people who, like me, are kind of outside the norm, people that aren't necessarily mainstream or see the world like this. I want to see the world like this. So I felt drawn to go into the streets, to go into the prisons, um, to go into the schools with the teenagers who might be drawn into gangs, looking for kinship, looking for family, looking for acceptance. And that became my path. And I was actually already kind of doing that when I lived in Houston, Texas. But now it became like more of a dedicated service. One of the most wonderful things that happened during that time, there were a couple while I was doing the chaplain work. One is walking up into a group of gang members, actually wearing exactly what I am today. And they kind of looked, they were having a party. They kind of looked at me like, something doesn't look right. She's got this on, but she's got this, and so while they're trying to figure out what this is, in combat boots, walking up to them, their hearts are wide open. And while that heart is open, in goes the light. And that's the first step forward. I don't preach to people. I don't coerce people. It's not my job to scare you into being a good person. My purpose is to walk with the light and to bring it into the darkness so that people can see that they have a choice. And who among us has the space to carry other people's choices? Free will means we get to make our own choices. All we can do is be a light in the darkness so that hopefully others can see and make clearer and better choices. Only the soul that goes through the world with tenderness has any chance of changing it. One of my other favorite memories of being in Belize, and I haven't been back there since the pandemic. I haven't been out of the country, so I'm doing my work here. But one of my favorite memories was going into the schools, and I'd just been in the service with them, and there's hundreds of them, and they're singing their beautiful voices, Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Sorry, not a singer, but it was so beautiful. And I listened to all of these voices, and then they had allowed me to speak in some of the classes. So Father George led me in, and I go into the classroom 1. And I like to use to connect with children, with teenagers, with anyone actually, music, spoken word, and dance. I love to dance my prayers, feel it, just feel them in my body. So he introduces me, and then he leaves me alone with them. And we started talking about music and about their beautiful voices. And I told them some of my spiritual music, which is Eminem, Pharrell Williams, Bob Marley. And their faces started to change a little bit. I invited them to come and speak some poetry, or their words. I believe every single person has a right to deliver a verse and to have their voice be heard. So they're kind of, they're kind of shy, but eventually, we sing, we dance, we twirl. And one young man got teary-eyed, and he started talking about his mother, who's a single mother, and her life is hard. And he comes home at the end of the day, and she's just so tired and um, downtrodden. And we started to sing Bob Marley. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right. And then we all sing it together. I get kind of, yeah, it was really, really profound. So we all sang this together, and we were all connected in that moment. When I get too full, it comes out my eyes. Um, so later in the day, Father George came to me, and he said, the most amazing thing is happening. Children are singing out in the courtyard. And the ones that were there, I had about 3 classes that day. So maybe 100 kids total. And he said the ones that were there were singing to the other kids. And it was this great light. And I've heard that all you need to do to change the world is to touch one person. So I believe on that day, I touched a person. And hopefully it made a difference in their lives. It is only through compassion that we return to ourselves, and we stand with the disposable so that the day will come when we stop throwing people away. We go into the margins, into the fringes, not to change others, but through the very act of going, we ourselves are changed. We stand with the powerless, with the poor, and with the disenfranchised, with those that are victimized, and with those that are not given a voice, until we make sure those voices are heard. Mother Teresa said, the problem with the world is we've forgotten that we belong to each other. We are so much more the same than we are different. If only we could see it, if only we could be it. If only. What I do now is I work with um, victims of domestic violence and sexual assault here where I live in Colorado. That's been a lifetime work for me. I'm an advocate for the LGBT community, specifically transgender rights. I work with people in 12-step recovery, and this is my practice, as well as people who have issues with God, like me, like I did. People who have issues with organized religion. Not a big fan. So for me, it goes back to a story I heard when I was young. And you've probably heard it, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I like to tell stories. An old man was walking down the beach, and there were thousands of starfish that had washed up on the beach. They can't walk, they had washed up on the beach. And as he's walking along, there's this young girl, and she's throwing them back out to sea. And he looks at her and he says, "What are you doing? There's thousands of starfish. You can't possibly save them all. What difference does it make?" And she holds up one and says, "It makes a difference to this." So my goal is to go into the world one starfish at a time, one if one person who's in a gang, who's holding guns, puts it down, picks up a microphone or finds their voice and finds a different way. One of my heroes is Father Greg Boyle, who started back in the 80s Homeboy Industries. And Homeboy Industries provides jobs and a new life for gang members who are out of prison so that they don't have to return to the old life and um, end up back in prison, to stop that cycle. And he says, nothing stops a bullet like a job. It gives them self-esteem and a kinship and a family that is not based on violence, but is based on light and love and acceptance and compassion and kinship. And that's my goal. That's what I want in the world. And why couldn't God speak to a 5-year-old and tell them what they were supposed to do? We hear about burning bushes and God comes in all sorts of ways. So why not a still small voice to a 5-year-old? And if you're wondering why I wear this, because I'm not an Anglican priest. I'm not Catholic. This is my equivalent of my gang colors. When I go into the streets, it tells them which side I'm on. It also says, "Please don't shoot me." But this lets people know what I'm there for. So that's my story. And I also want to say one thing, and that is that we tend to take ourselves so seriously. And you know what? Life is too important to be taken seriously. So don't forget to laugh and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Marquita. That was great. I know I appreciate, wasn't able to write the whole thing down, but you had said that only a soul that goes through life in tenderness has the power to change it. Did I get that correct?
Only the soul that goes through the world with tenderness has any chance of changing it.
I love that. Thank you. So I do see that you have a couple of one question at least that has come in. It says, Marquita, I've always found the collapse of the quantum wave function by observation to be a godlike concept, which in a godlike concept in quantum physics. Which aspects of quantum physics lead you back to God? That's a big
I
question.
that is a deep question. I'm not a physicist. Um, it was I can't answer that question directly. Um, it was there was a study, there was a movement uh, called metaphysics back in the 80s, and through that and through quantum physics, I can't explain that. Um, all I know is that in that in that study, I discovered it was through science, and I've heard this before, that we find God in nature and in science more than any place else. So I can't explain exactly how that happened any more than I can explain what happened to me when I was 5. It's it's something it's something that I came to, and again, this has been 38 years ago. Um, and I'm sorry I can't answer that question completely. It's something that happened to me in my heart while I was doing those studies.
Okay, thank you. Marquita, thank you so much. Reverend Mo, thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. I really appreciate it.
So I want to leave you with blessings
Oh,
for us
please.
and for the world. So blessings, namaste, bendiciones, shalom, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Marquita.